I think history of filmmaking generally teaches me that you have to be aware of what's going on around you. And I think as a well-rounded up as you can be about it, it's better for your film to be, or better anything you do with it. Whether you start a new medium to, with 4D or whatever it is you're doing. So that is very, very crucial. Because that is, I'm sure it's obvious in your ponderings about what to do, the stuff you're working on, or whatever is engaging you today. So that has been my experience of going from one thing to another. So yeah, if I were to tell you specifically the journey that I had to take from the new medium, I would say, and just to give you an example where film is so different and digital, is that film is of course expensive because you have a fixed amount of footage. Although once you say digital, same thing with the drive space and the terabytes you have to have. But at the ratio, it's pretty. Film kind of has limitations in certain aspects. The romanticists will tell you that you're never get that quality, but I agree with them. But there's other things that I have found digital to give you is, for me, the biggest thing has been performance. Versus where in film you have to have a set okay, you start now and you finish now kind of a thing, because film would run out on your camera. In digital, you can keep rolling without the actor noticing or disrupting the actor. And somehow I find that always interesting because the less interruption the actor has with the mechanics of what's going on, the better it is for them. And I feel for digital actors has been the biggest, acting has been the biggest thing in digital, advent of this new technology change. And I think that is something that is not spoken enough about. And I feel it's very strongly about the kind of, you can do the kind of the stage and the kind of the setups and they kind of allow you to see and which capture the performance, and it kind of gives you another way. I would akin it to how, and I don't know, I'm going to probably alienate a lot of the audience, but there was a filmmaker called Chak, and he used to pick up a camera, which was 16mm black and white film. And it was a light camera, and it allowed him to go into spaces with his filmmaking and get the performances. And he was lauded as a more wonderful filmmaker because he captured performances, he pushed the actors in a certain category. And I think John Cassavetes would have been a big fan of digital, and he died before the medium changed, format changed. And I think so for me, digital has been wonderful. I would think things like acting and things like, if you had no money to make a movie, digital is wonderful because it doesn't cost you that much to make a film. Earlier, it excluded people with people with money, people who raise money, only ones who make films. So I think that's a wonderful part of films. The new technology. I think that you can really give people the access. But all these things kind of are the pluses of digital, and I feel it's very, very important that we keep it in check about when you're doing a film. When I have to keep it in check, right? I know a lot of you may keep you venture into making films, but I think that is part of it. But I think ultimately what happens is that you have to, the content still prevails. The content still has to be as important. I think that's very, very, very true. That hasn't changed over the course of 120, 30 years or something. So I'll leave it to that. And I wanted to ask everybody about anything they wanted to ask me about the medium or my style of working or anything that you want to ask me about my experiences. You're welcome to ask me about. me. The future of animation movies is a bit tough. I mean, there have been a couple of films that have kind of made kind of an impact. But I think it's still a wonderful medium. I feel that hasn't been explored enough. And I think with our new generation, I'm sure you all grew up with animation films from the West. But earlier, before your generation, you had no access to it. So I'm hoping your generation kind of brings that change about to making the animation a certain quality and certain kind of storytelling. People you are used to animation. The generation before you wasn't used to animation. You know, it wasn't, so they didn't know how to look at it. They didn't know how to tell stories. But I'm assuming that you guys have enough exposure to bring about that change. Your generation will be able to, you grew up probably on everything past Little Mermaid onwards to probably, you know, or even if you're not interested in commercial ones, but the other aspects of artistic animation, that you probably have more exposure to it because of YouTube or any other medium, you know, that's digital. So I'm sure your generation will make that change happen. And anybody? So you're missing story, you're saying, with all the new stuff. Yeah, that has been a problem. I feel in our films for a while actually. Stories, I feel, still drive films, and I think that despite of all the new technology we have, I think the problem is we don't work hard in our stories. We actually have, you know, we used to copy stories. That's another problem. For a long time, we copied stories and, you know, spit it out, and, you know, plagiarized actually. Copying is not the word, plagiarism. But I think the problem is it stops us from thinking about films. It stops us from thinking about how to create content. And I think that's a very big problem. I think in our culture, I don't think we have enough storytellers who can actually, you know, have that patience to write a story, stick at it, develop it. Because it's a lot of hard work. Writing is not easy. Writing is very, very difficult. It's not something, it's an art form that you have to spend time and effort and really work at it. And I think we often take the easy way out. We often figure out, okay, we'll make a remake, we'll make something that we've seen in another movie, because we want to get on with the movie. We don't want to think about how hard it is to get, you know, to get the script right. You know, you have a film, you can have a really good film, but it's too much work sometimes for a lot of people. You know, I've seen a lot of people just feel like they just don't have that patience and trying to work at the script. I think that's very, very important. I think things are changing. There's a lot more writers I see now that are taking seriously. But I would think that there were writers in the past who were taking very seriously. There were some star writers in other generations, 3 or 4 generations before us. But I think writing as a profession has been, it doesn't have that status in our culture. Across the board, I don't think writing is something that people think that people should do. You know, it's like, I don't know what to say. There's no respect. So I think, especially in Bombay, there's not much of a respect for writers, you know, because they're not paid well. You know, they're kind of blamed for a lot of the problems in the script because maybe the director or producer misled them to try to make the script a certain way, and then they get stuck with it. I've seen a lot of people, writers become frustrated. It's just because, and then they decide they don't want to write, they want to make movies, and so they never develop as writers. I don't know if everybody knows J.J. Abrams. I don't know who he's the guy who's a writer and a producer and a filmmaker in Hollywood who's made Star Trek and Next Generation. He's making next Star Wars series. He started as a writer, and you know, of course, for a couple couple of scripts, he was okay with it, they were sold in Hollywood, but they weren't that great, they weren't that fantastic. But he stuck to his writing. He created TV shows that, one by one, he did Lost, he created Lost. And he stuck to it. He was given that respect in his early in his career. And I think he understood that my job is to write, and he wrote he could write anything out of for that. And I think that is something really that we don't have enough of. We don't get that. We don't give that weightage to writers, that respect to just stick to the writing. Writers get so misused and just abused so much, they walk out of it. They just say, oh, I'm going to direct now. Because there's far more attention, there's far more fame, notoriety, people respect you more in directing maybe. So they just switch over. So that is a big problem. That is one of the reasons why I feel something, when you say the script, it takes a long time. You can't write a great, very few people can write a great script in the 20s. A lot more people can write a great script in the 30s, and even more numbers can write a great script in the 40s. I feel. That's my theory about it. I think it just gets better and better and better. You have to have a certain amount of maturity, and I don't think we have that. And we don't cultivate, we don't mature writers to a point, and I think that's probably one of the issues that we have. So I think that's one of the, as long as we don't have the respect for the writers, our films are going to be crap. That's my experience. I'll just connect you with my experience. I work with Iit Guwahati, who's written 2 films for me. Actually, I would say I've directed 2 of his films. He's a fantastic writer. And I've made a movie called Chak with him and Rocket Singh. His one of the year. 2 wonderful scripts. He's a wonderful writer in the sense that he only wants to do is write, and he's really passionate about it. And I hope he directs one day, but I don't think he's interested. But he, my experiences with him has been so unique. I would say that it spoiled me, because he's such a dedicated and passionate writer. I don't know if anybody knows the story of how Chak happened. Iit Guwahati happened to read an article on women's hockey team winning the Commonwealth gold in 2004 or something like that. And he saw the article, and it was in the back pages, and it was this small, and he was really confused about how something like that, a Commonwealth winning team was so neglected. He was very passionate about this idea that something must be done. So he started researching into it, and he saw that he went to the camp and he hung out with the team, and he realized that the team was in dire straits. I mean, the kind of these women who had won this championship, the coach for the team was begging for sponsors, some sleazy sponsor of theirs for shoes for the team, and this really disturbed him. He was really taken back in why such talented group of people were misused. So he decided that the best way he could do, he started also because he wants to advertise. He thought, I'll get them sponsors so they can get money for this, for the team sports equipment or whatever they needed. And he said, and they went into his usual advertising clients or whatever it is, and they said to him that, who wants to sponsor a bunch of women playing sports, He thought, okay, now this is a mindset he needs to change. So he decided, because he had already written scripts before, he had written something before that, he was in the process of writing Postcard of Rose Gold. And he said that I'm going to write a script, I'm going to make this into a film. And that's, he just went at it, and he wrote that script. And when I was in the earliest stages of that development, he asked me if I'd be interested. I said, it sounds really strange, and he said that because, Bombay is not interested in sports films. I mean, they had Lagan, but it was more of a different kind of a thing. And I was just, it was thankfully, because of Lagan also it helped us to do this film, but it wasn't really interested in it, especially women, bunch of women who weren't probably going to be future, they weren't the typical Bombay type of actresses. So he, I said, if we can make this film, it's amazing. It'd be really fantastic if we can really get it out there. And luckily, our boss, Iit Chopra, was really behind the film, and he was like, "You guys make the film the way you want to make it." And but then we went through the process of it, and we had to say, okay, now we're going to make this film, but we're going to make it in a certain budget, and we said. Then that's how it started. We wanted to make it a big film. We wanted to film people who will see and change that mindset that he felt really, angry about in a way. I think that and he just stuck to that script. I remember we worked on a script for about 8 months. He kept writing, and we just said, okay, maybe it's too big. We have to make it small because he wrote a huge script. He wrote it really, like it was going to be over 3 hours. And we kind of, we both, I would say, let's not have this, let's have that. And he kind of shaped it in a way that really was kind of minutes long. But we had that patience, and I think a lot of the films that we probably like had gone through that process. No writing comes easily. You can't just overnight write a script. And I think that's what the thing is. A lot of people, what happens in the industry is that you sign up an actor, that actor is available in. A lot of actors, if you want a big star, they're not free for 12 months, at least. If they're really big, at least 2 years, So you don't get the actors. You promise that, okay, we'll get the script ready by another 12 months, but you never really worked hard on it, really, and you think you still maybe need another 6 months, but you committed to the actor, and you kind of pitch them the idea, and sometimes, nowadays actors also got to the point they want to read the script, but sometimes they let you just need to, pitch, okay, you're going to make film fine, you're going to make it in 12 months, whatever, and the script doesn't arrive on time, or whatever. That's one way it goes wrong. The second thing, the producer starts saying that, well, I don't think this works for the film, we should change that. We should go to, Italy to shoot the song, so we do it. Film may not even require it, and so it becomes like really screwed up. And you have to figure out a situation where you have to have seen it to Italy, and film may not require that. So that's what happens also a lot of times. So yeah, for me, but Chak was like that, in the sense that the producer was 100% behind. He said, how do you want to cast so much? And I said, we would like to cast people who can play the sport because, even if you take normal actors, you have to stand out in the sun 10 hours a day because that's the shoot day. And do it for maybe 5 days, 5 weeks, and that's very impossible for any actor to do. And so we had to figure out how to cast girls in it. So we had an elaborate process and all that. So the producer was 100% behind us to do that, which was amazing because it helped us to make the film we wanted to make. And that's very important. You have a group of people that believe in what you're doing, and you get to make what you want to make. So that's part of also the script being part of that, where you make out of the script, but then somewhere along the line that somebody comes up with something and say, oh, it's not, something that somebody say, well, put that person in there. And that person may not be right for your film. Or put that storyline in there. And they interfere with that. Some of the financiers and some of the producers do. So that's part of the reason also. But people get frustrated, even directors get frustrated with that. So yeah, it's been, I think for us, Jaideep and I think, even for me and Jaideep, I think Rocket Team were probably the ideal conditions we made our films in, where we got to make the films we wanted to make. course, you can do it in an art film because your budgets are low, but when your budgets are high, a lot of interests are there that say that you have to make a film a certain way. You know, so I'm sure you find that in your, you know, if you're making projects, I'm sure that certain projects, you know, if you make it a certain budget, you can do the thing you want to do, and in certain projects you require more money, so you have to say, okay, I'm going to get a sponsor or something that you may not, that sponsor may want you to do something to the things and make it usable for something else that you may not agree with. But that's up to you and your compromises, you know. Sure. So let me I wanted to talk to you about the filmmaking process, but it's so boring and so kind of antiquated, as I said earlier. So I can only, you know, I can say that, yeah, there are a lot of details of, how we make a film, and blah, 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 and anecdotes, and there are, some of it are interesting, some of it only the film fanatics may like. So I don't want to necessarily alienate, so you can ask me the question the way, you know, whatever way you want to ask me, because if you are interested, you can ask me that specific question, because I know there's a diverse group of people sitting here, that's what I know. So if you're interested in one particular thing that I've been part of or may have an opinion on, you're most welcome to ask me. I became a director by accident, actually. I was an editor. I used to edit films for you know, for a while, and then I was interested in editing because I was, you know, it just was very. I was an math student, so for me, editing was like really close to logic and kind of the theory that one puts in for mathematics, maybe, you know, and I think, and the technical part of it also was interesting to me because it's something technology, you know, technically it's a jumble, it's like a crossword, like a not crossword, but you know, you get jumble words, you kind of have to rearrange things and it's see things differently, and you have to be slightly dyslexic to get from the stuff, and I really enjoyed that part about editing. I thought that I would like to see things go back and forth and upside down or inside out, or and see where things work or don't work. And I think that fascinated me. And using technology to do that. In that time also, digital editing came into the picture, and we had to learn how video capturing and manipulating video images would really change your narrative, you know. And I think that's what attracted me to it. I was an editor, and then I happened to come to India for editing job for a filmmaker Ram Gopal Verma, who was making a film, a horror film there. And I had a friend who worked with him, and he asked me if I wanted to come to India and make a film. I was in LA and I was working there, and visual effects and things like that. I was editing also there. And I said it would be fun. It would be fun to come to India, and because I hadn't spent enough time here, and I thought it'd be lovely to just get to know the country and the culture and all that. So I came here for that, and I started working on the booth. And while I was working on the booth, Ram Gopal Verma was expanding into making multiple films, and which he was producing, and he offered me a film to direct. Because he thought he's an editor, and he said probably I can make a film or something, you know, and he looked at it and maybe, you know, whatever however he thought. I never asked him why he thought I could make a film, but anyways, I had never directed before, and he offered me a film which was up at Chak, which was my first film. You know, it was about the encounter specialist, and I knew a little bit about the project, but I did some research and I thought the world was really fascinating, and the whole violence part of it, and but I wasn't sure if they let me make the film I wanted to make, because the kind of films at that time that were coming out were, well, you know, it was a different era. You guys are really young, but I wanted to make a grittier film, and I wanted to make it violent, and at the same time, keeping in mind, I wanted people to really get it. I didn't want to really alienate the audience a little, you know, because there is a darker film there. So we kind of came to like a midway ground of how to make that film, and I said, okay, I'll make it just enough violence that it feels new for the audience, but on the whole world, maybe it's not as violent, you know. The act is violent, of course, and that's always bigger, but those are things. But then the other things that I had to really get over was I wanted to at that time I wanted to shoot things sound, which is concept-wise. All our Indian films, by the way, if you know, up to a certain point, they're all dubbed, meaning that if I say something, it's not the sound is recorded, but it's not really used for the final product. I have to go back to the studio and redub myself. So the performances are different. You know, when you do sync sound versus dub sound, your acting comes out completely different. You know, it's all the nuances, everything. That's why you find somewhere a disconnect if you watch those old westerns and people are talking and the lips are moving and, you know, not moving or whatever. We used to do those films until 2000 and late 90s, early 2000 started to change, and we were at that. I was like, okay, let's make at that time only 3 or 4 movies a year were being made in sync sound, and I said I would love to make this in sync sound because there is Nana Patekar in it, and he wasn't around Bombay, and that was a sync sound film, and I remember his voice being really amazing, and when we recorded on live, you know, and a lot of other times we make films, it's always been dub voice, and it's never had that effect, you know, and I said I'd love to shoot this in sync sound, and it was very new for at least the production company that was working. Sync sound was also more expensive, so they said at that time, because you had to stop the traffic outside, and you had to make sure that those other things that would, you know, people would put up as obstacles for you not to do sync sound. But I said let's do sync sound. So I think at that time we could manage about 80% of the film sync sound. A lot of the car shots are not sync sound because the cameras used for it were really loud, so they wouldn't allow me to use the real audio for the thing. There was a lot of whirring in it and older cameras and all that. So that was one thing that we did in that film that was really different for that era. And the other thing, it had no songs in it. The film had no songs, not even one background song. And I think that was also something really for us very pushing it. And I thought, and I had grown up without songs, watching films without songs in a way, you know. So I always thought that, you know, why can't I make a film without songs? So that's what happened with that, you know. And I think that was my first film. That was my that's how I got into it. From romance and comedy. Okay, his question is that why is Bollywood getting out of romance and comedy and you know, going into more research-based films? I think they are. There are a lot of films. I mean, last year, Samira and me, Hospital Gawad, and you know, there are a lot of films now. I think these filmmakers are meeting. There is a segment of audience that can watch. I'm sure you guys have watched more films now than you probably did. But you are a different generation also in the sense that you're now going to school, and you know, when you were growing up, probably you probably didn't have the same taste as you do now. That's another story. But if you want to compare, I would say that the better films, there's a choice now. Earlier there was no choice. There was no choice about the kind of films that were being made. You just had that one particular type of film that was getting financed. But now, with the Bhaskar and Anurag and all these amazing filmmakers, you know, not just Mira, and I think there's more choices and more opportunities for films to be made in a different way, you know. And I think it's no longer true, but I feel, yeah, in terms of financing, it's still difficult because the financiers are still older generation a little bit. You know, they're still on an era, and they think that having stars and having songs secures their belief. You know, there's a thing that goes on with the films when it's made is that when you promote a film, how do you entice the audience? How does the audience decide, well, I'm going to go to the film? You guys are right. You guys know what story and whatever you want to see. But a lot of, I mean, I'm not saying that the audience is, but they're only tuned to understanding, okay, this is the movie, there's a star in it, there's a song in it, there's a life, and I'm going to go see that. That's what producers think the audience wants to see. Wants to convince you to go see the film, sorry. You know, and I think you guys are probably exempt from because you probably see through it, but people also see through it, but the producers don't understand that. You know, I think it's always a challenge to promote your film because it's like a game. You know, how do you convey to an audience that the movie is good? You know, how do you convey to an audience that you're standing out? So a lot of times they think that stars and songs are the only thing, and foreign locations are the only thing you need. And I don't have any producers for that. You know, I don't think the filmmakers really want to make different films. But at the end of the day, you end up doing things that fools the audience into thinking that that movie has this, and so you want to come to my film. You know, but it doesn't always work. You know, it doesn't always work. But thankfully, now you have YouTube and all these things to really push the films out, and you can make people understand that you have a film that has content in it. You have films that are different and maybe you want to see. You know, and that's I think it's changed a lot more than it used to be. You know, I would say in my generation, I think my film, I feel comfortable. Okay, we made things that were a little bit offbeat, and we got away with it. I mean, earlier, I just 10 years before that, I would have had a tough time making those films. Actually, you know. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you agree with me. I don't know if you think that there are these quality films being made now than they were before. Anybody? Sorry? Human mind, ideas in human mind. Oh yeah, films, yeah. So the films can do that, yeah, because the math starts. So how it can contribute to the education? Of course it can do it. Films are highly influential, of course, in our culture. Films and soap operas are highly influential culturally, and I think it's actually people learn a lot from it. You know, I think filmmakers in a way have that responsibility to convey to an audience. I think again, I need to go back to my film circuit, but certainly we had an issue and an agenda to educate the audience that there are women who play sports. They have a life. They are human beings. They are people who are interesting and qualified and as good as men or whatever. And we wanted to put that in people's minds. I at least thought, and Devi talked about that, we would like every girl in the country to really enjoy this film. You know, if they didn't enjoy the film, then we didn't succeed. I think partially because there aren't any films for kids. You know, we grew up watching oversexed women in films which really don't exist in real life. You know, and I feel it's horrifying when certain girl has to imitate somebody on a dance show who's like 25 years old and half naked, and I feel like it's disturbing to me. You know, there aren't enough, and then we complain that women are completely objectified, and I think it's very irresponsible for filmmakers not to understand that and think, oh, everybody wants entertainment. You can change the name of entertainment. Hollywood isn't doing that. You know, it got it to a certain point. I mean, maybe it that wrong, but it's not to the level. It can do it. You know, it does it. But don't get me wrong. But I feel that we have a responsibility. I like an entertaining movie, but I feel that you can touch an audience, you can engage an audience very smartly without really corrupting their minds. You know, with this kind of kids especially. I think kids are very impressionable, and I feel animation way, I think films have that power, and we don't utilize it, and I don't think we feel responsible for the medium that's so powerful. We don't feel, we just think that, okay, we just have to make it, and we make some money off of it, and go on and do it. I think we can do more than that.
So, yeah, I wanted to ask, when you're directing a movie, how driven are you by the fact that it's going to be a success or failure?
Well, it's a very good question. I don't know. Actually, when I make the film, I don't know if it's going to be successful. It's very difficult to see what's going to be successful, and I don't know if anybody knows. There's no formula. If anybody knew the formula, maybe not my knows the formula, but that's only personal. I would say. But it's very difficult for mortals like us to really figure out how to make a successful film because we're just going by our own judgment calls. We're just going by what you think, what feels story-wise, what feels right. And I don't think sometimes you can include everyone in the way you tell the story. So you have to let go of that. My background or somebody else's background will tell you different things about how you want to tell a story, what the emotion, the pitch of it, what the connection of the language of what you want to convey. It's very different for every filmmaker, and I can second guess and say you will understand this, but you may not, or I can say you will not understand it, but you will. It's very difficult. So it's all based, all these little tiny calculations add up to becoming a movie successful or not. Whether you feel good or not, it's a big issue. We all like to feel good, I was earlier talking to Vikram and saying, why do our movies always have to have a happy ending? But he's a minority, and I love him for saying that, but he's a minority. If you go out and look outside, people really don't like, or producers especially don't like a movie that people it's not a happy ending. It's really, they don't go for it. I mean, okay, you have one more Ashiki to do, but that's like a different kind of a zone. I don't know if you watch that stuff, but that is a different kind of film. So it's not it's very rare to know what an audience really precisely wants. You just have to make a film you think that you want to watch. I think I go by that. I want to watch. I'm not an art filmmaker, so I like to watch popular films. So I like to say, okay, this is a popular film I like to see. Anecdote about, I'll just tell you again back to Chak. Chak, when he first came to me and he said it, like, I want you to film one girl something, I kind of scratched my head and said, I don't know anything about sports. And I said, I told my wife, I said that, that I don't know if I can do a women-oriented film. I want to make art films. I thought somewhere I would make really meaningful cinema for that, I'd make that, really hardcore. I come back and come out of a very violent film, and I want to make even more violent film after that. But my wife said that, if you're skilled, if you don't tell this kind of story that you want to watch, then really you will leave it to people who may not even feel passionate about it and really watch it in a way, And I felt, she told me I was doing a song for now, considering me. And I think that really opened my mind and said, yeah, why not? Why not make a film that I want to watch this film if I made, if it was made a certain way. And that's what I felt maybe happened with that. That I would have watched the film but if I made it, I'd watch it, that kind of a thing. I don't know if you get that. Like, I made it the way I thought this film should be made. But somebody else has made it. Maybe they would have done a better job, of course, but I felt like that was probably what connected me to that film. And made it tough. We didn't know it was going to be successful also. I remember I was not even in the country when the movie released. I thought, okay, I did the work, and kind of our earlier screenings were like a little confusing because we thought, are people getting the film? Is it too, is it going over? Like, I don't know what is it not, because somehow we have gotten this feedback that it doesn't follow a format or anything like that. It's just, okay, but I think it's a commercial film. I mean, we did the best we could with it. So I left and gone home to my mother. And then I realized I got a call back and said, oh, movie's doing really well, you come back. I said, how? Why did I really think to do that? But it did well. But I didn't know that. I wish I knew that. But then it becomes weird when you know that the movie's going to be successful. It's really, I don't think anything can tell. And I realized at that time, such things happen like that, You just make the best you can. Be honest to it, and maybe people will, acknowledge you for it.
Sir, I am curious about how do you choose a particular kind of...
Yes. Oh, so last question.
Yeah. Sir, I am curious about how do you choose a particular kind of sound, the background score and the music for your particular kind of film that you are making. What is the algorithm through which you end up, getting a particular kind of sound? Could you please, tell us something about that?
Algorithm is that I actually overscored my films in the past. I don't know why. I have a tendency towards actually scoring the movie now. If I were to make a film, but I actually score it to what I feel is right about the feeling I want to see. I try not to underline it, but it ends up being underlined no matter what you put underneath it. I try to go for what sensibly audio-wise interests me. It's all about my one taste in music. I'm sure everybody in this room has a different sense of taste. If I were to ask 5 people what kind of music you like, and 5 people have different question around this and that. So it's all subjective. But I just go for what I feel, what a film needs to express, maybe not express or whatever. I mean, it's the cheapest way to do it. Because I make commercial films, I have to use music because that's how you tell a story also. Some of the best movies that I love are scored. But there's something wrong with scoring because it's like manipulating an audience. And I always feel guilty every time I do it. I feel like, why doesn't my visual, my dialogue, whatever shot it, tell the story? Why do I need music? That's cheating. It's like, but you have to do it. In commercial films. And you do enjoy this, and I end up listening to music instead of just seeing a different dialogue sometimes, So it's just a matter of personal taste. There are music, there's certain music that I like, that I'm fond of, and I put it in a movie, and okay, this works for it, I send track. And then we build from that, or I don't put it, I send it back and just see how the composer kind of sees the scene in a different way. We got another layer of the scene, whether it's saying something else that the scene isn't saying, things like that. But in a movie, the dialogue is saying something else, and the music comes out and says something